The Hard Lesson of Love. Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today, I have a brand new and interesting story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Lucas, and this is the story of how I learned the hard way that sometimes the person you love the most takes you for granted until it's too late. Sophie and I met in our early 20s. Back then, we were inseparable. One of those couples people looked at and said, yeah, they're meant for each other. Our love felt effortless, late-night drives, deep conversations, and two souls completely lost in each other. When we got married, it felt right. We had big dreams, traveling, building a life together, and maybe starting a family someday. For a while, everything was perfect. But as life happens, things changed. I was working hard to build my business from the ground up, putting in long hours and making sacrifices. Still, no matter how busy I got, Sophie was always my priority. I made time for her, small surprises, random date nights, or just sitting down to talk after a long day. I wanted her to know she mattered, and at first she appreciated it. She was proud of me, supportive, and my biggest cheerleader. But slowly she started changing. At first, it was little things, complaining that she needed more me time, saying she wanted to focus on herself. I supported that because we all need space to grow. But soon it became something else. She started talking about putting herself first, and I thought she meant self-care, working out, reading, or doing things that made her happy. But that wasn't what she meant. She meant doing whatever she wanted, regardless of how it affected our marriage. She stopped trying. She didn't care about our plans. She barely even asked about my day. But at the same time, she still expected me to treat her like she was the most important person in the world. It was like she wanted all the benefits of marriage, without actually being a wife. At first, I told myself it was just a rough patch. Every marriage has ups and downs, right? So, I did what any loving husband would do. I tried harder. I avoided conflict as much as possible. If something upset me, I would talk about it. But if it led to an argument instead of a solution, I'd swallow my feelings. Instead of fighting, I surprised her with gifts. Little things I knew she liked. Flowers, perfume, even that expensive handbag she had been eyeing for months. Anything to remind her that I still cared, that I was still here. But none of it mattered. She would thank me sometimes, but there was no real emotion behind it. No excitement. No appreciation. Just a half-hearted smile before she moved on, usually to her phone. Then one day, she told me she needed space. She needed to find herself. At first, I didn't question it. I thought, okay, maybe she just needs time to figure things out. So I gave her the space she asked for. I stopped trying to pull her close. I let her go out more, have her nights out, do whatever she felt she needed. But months later, nothing changed. She only became more distant, more self-absorbed. Like she was the main character in some kind of story, that I had become nothing more than a background character in her life. Someone who was there to serve her, not to be loved by her. She started acting like she deserved better, as if being with me was settling. And I'll be honest, that hurt. I watched the woman I fell in love with slip further and further away, convinced that she could do better than me. When you love someone who doesn't value you, it messes with your head. You start questioning yourself. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm the problem. I spent so many nights staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what had changed. What did I do wrong? When did I stop being enough for her? But deep down, I already knew the truth. No matter how much I loved her, I couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend everything was okay. Then came the night that changed everything. I had been waiting up for hours, watching the clock, listening to the sound of cars passing by outside. It wasn't the first time Sophie had come home late. But something about this night felt different. When I finally heard the door open, I exhaled, trying to steady my emotions. I didn't want to argue. I was too exhausted for another fight. She walked in, stumbling slightly, the smell of alcohol hitting me before I even turned to look at her. She barely acknowledged me, tossing her bag onto the couch and kicking off her shoes. I swallowed my frustration. Stay calm, Lucas. Sophie, do you even realize what you're doing? I asked, my voice steady but tired. This isn't just about coming home late. You're pushing me away. I've been patient. but you're not acting like a married woman anymore." She rolled her eyes, like I had just told her the most ridiculous thing in the world. Then with a lazy smirk she laughed. "Oh please," she scoffed. "You think I need you? Do you really think you're special? Plenty of men want me. If you leave, I'll replace you the next day." I felt my chest tighten, but I didn't let it show. She wasn't done. She straightened up, her expression turning smug. "I'm done living by your rules. I'm done living by anyone's rules. This is my life, and neither you nor society is going to tell me how to live it. I'm in my baby girl era now, Lucas. Either deal with it or don't." That was it. That was the moment I knew. I had lost her. Or maybe she had lost me. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't beg her to see reason. What was the point? She had already decided who she wanted to be. And it wasn't the woman I had married. So, I did the only thing left to do. I let her have the life she wanted. And I walked away. The end of us. The next morning, I made a call to the best divorce lawyer in town. I wasn't interested in dragging things out or making her life difficult. I just wanted a clean break. The legal process moved quickly. We had no kids. And I wasn't about to fight over furniture or shared bank accounts. Things were settled without much back and forth. I didn't care about what was fair or unfair. I just wanted out. I didn't even show up for the final meeting. I let my lawyer handle everything. And once the papers were signed, I did exactly what I had promised myself I would do. I disappeared. No calls. No texts. No long, emotional messages. I was just gone. At first, she didn't seem to care. If anything, she looked relieved. She convinced herself that this was her fresh start, her chance to finally be free. I caught glimpses of her new life on social media. Pictures of her out with friends, drinks in hand, living it up like she was celebrating a victory. Her posts were filled with captions about new beginnings and knowing your worth. For a while, it seemed like she had moved on without a second thought. She jumped back into the dating scene almost immediately. And of course, there were plenty of men eager to entertain her. But something was different now. She wasn't the prize she thought she was. Sure, she got attention, but it wasn't the kind she had expected. The men who chased after her weren't looking for commitment, just a good time. And the ones who were ready for something serious? They weren't the kind of men she wanted. I wasn't there to witness it firsthand, but I heard things. She cycled through relationships quickly, jumping from one guy to the next, never finding anything that lasted. One by one, they all left. The attention she had once thrived on started to feel hollow and meaningless. Slowly, the confidence she had flaunted began to crack. For the first time, she was alone. Not by choice. Not for self-discovery. But because she had pushed away the one person who had truly loved her. How did I know? We still had mutual friends who spoke with her. And as for me, I wasn't looking back. After the divorce, I had a choice to make. I could have jumped into another relationship, searching for someone to fill the void. I could have drowned myself in meaningless flings, distractions, and temporary highs. But I knew that wasn't the answer. That wasn't what I wanted. I had spent too long losing myself in a marriage where I was unseen. Now it was time to choose me. So I did. I threw myself into my business, using it as a way to rebuild. Not just financially but emotionally. I poured my energy into growing what I had built from the ground up, expanding it further, making it stronger. Work wasn't just work anymore. It was a reminder that I was capable, that I had a purpose outside of being someone's husband. Slowly, I started seeing results. My business took off in ways I never imagined. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my life again. At the same time, I focused on my health, both physically and mentally. I hit the gym, not to impress anyone, but to feel strong again. I started eating better, sleeping better, taking care of myself in ways I had neglected for years. I accepted the hard truth. Some people will never appreciate you, no matter how much you give. And I refused to settle for anything that didn't add real value to my life. I wasn't going to let loneliness trick me into running back to what was familiar, or chasing relationships that weren't right for me. I learned to be alone without feeling lonely. I became comfortable in my own company, something I hadn't felt in a long time. And slowly I flourished. That more than anything was my greatest win. It had been years since I last saw Sophie. That day, I was just running errands, picking up a few things from a department store. I turned a corner, and there she was, standing just a few feet away, holding a shopping bag, staring at me like she had seen a ghost. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. She still looked good. She had always taken care of her appearance, but something was different. Her eyes scanned me. "Lucas," she finally spoke, her voice unsure, almost hesitant. I nodded, offering a polite smile. "Hey, Sophie. Been a while." She let out a nervous laugh, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Wow, you look different." I shrugged. "Yeah, life's been good." She started asking questions, trying to keep the conversation going. "How have you been? What have you been up to?" I answered casually, never giving her too much, keeping it light. I wasn't rude, but I also wasn't giving her what she was hoping for. I had no idea what was going through her mind. After a few more minutes of small talk, she smiled uncertain. "Maybe we could catch up sometime?" I smiled back. "Yeah, maybe." I knew we wouldn't. That chapter of my life was closed. Days after that encounter, she reached out. It started with a simple message. One of those casual, "Hey, it was nice seeing you the other day" texts. I hesitated before responding, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Against my better judgment, I replied. From there, the conversation slowly picked up. Nothing deep. Nothing emotional. Just small talk. Nostalgia creeping in, filling the gaps where anger and resentment used to be. Over the next few weeks, we texted here and there. She would send random messages about things that reminded her of me. And despite everything, I couldn't deny it. The feelings were still there. You don't just stop loving someone overnight. But what I came to realize was that love alone wasn't enough. The trust, that was long gone. One evening she suggested we meet up. Just dinner. Just to talk. A part of me wanted to say yes. I won't lie, I was tempted. But then, I stopped and asked myself a question I had been avoiding this entire time. What was the point? Was I looking for an apology? Some kind of explanation? A chance to fix what was already broken beyond repair? No. Deep down I knew the truth. I didn't need her to give me closure. I needed to give it to myself. So I declined. Not with bitterness. Not with anger. Just a simple, I don't think that's a good idea. It took me a long time to admit that I was broken. I didn't want to acknowledge it. But Sophie had done more damage than I realized. Not just because she left, but because of the way she made me feel before she did. Unworthy. Replaceable. Like I was never enough. At first, I told myself I was fine. I focused on my business, worked out more, surrounded myself with friends. But no matter how much I tried to distract myself, there was this weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. I knew if I didn't deal with it, it would follow me into every part of my life. So, I did something I never thought I would do. I went to therapy. At first, it felt weird, sitting there, talking to a stranger about everything I had spent years burying. But week after week, I started seeing things more clearly. I wasn't stupid for loving Sophie. I wasn't weak for trying to save my marriage. I was just a man who gave his heart to the wrong person. And that wasn't my failure. It was just a lesson I needed to learn. Healing wasn't instant. It wasn't about waking up one day and suddenly feeling free. It was about the small moments. So I burned every bridge with Sophie. No more texts. No more small talk. No more what-ifs. I decided that my story with her was over. Before I deleted her number, I sent one last message. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. Just the truth. I wish you the best. Looking back, I used to think the only way to move on from someone who hurt you was to get even. To prove to them that they lost something valuable. But I realized something along the way. Revenge is a waste of energy. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply moving on, becoming the best version of yourself, and letting them watch from a distance. And that, my friends, is exactly what I did. That's it for today's story. Have you ever been in a situation like this? How did you handle it? If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life stories. Until next time, take care.